Do you have those nights where you can't get any sleep no matter what you try? And you just have these thoughts that like keep circling in your head and you can't figure out what you should do next, how to make a decision. Well, you are in luck because today the Art of Advocacy Show is dedicated to you, your questions, your wonderings, your must knows, and we will be answering all of those throughout the show today. So while we are ready to waiting actually to get started here, why don't you type in any questions, comments, concerns that you have right now, because those are the things that we want to be talking about today. And I see we have some new change makers with us, so I want to welcome you and do a quick introduction while the rest of you are typing in those questions. I am Charmaine Tanner. I'm a parent, a retired teacher, and an advocate. And I help parents like you become even more effective advocates for your children so they can be safe, happy, and learning every day in inclusive classrooms because that's the education that they deserve, right? So we are believers in change. We are implementers of change here. And we're going to kick it up a notch because I think we've been playing too small. And yes, we might be creating some change for one child at a time, but that's not going to be good enough. So if you know some friends that need to be here and helping create change, make sure that you invite. Somehow I got removed. The other thing that I wanted to share with you was to make sure that you're getting our weekly email advocacy tips. I'll be sending one out tomorrow, which will have highlights from today's show, the different resources that we mention in the show. I'll have links for. So if you aren't getting our weekly advocacy tips, just go to this link, iep.today/weekly adv tips, and you will start getting them tomorrow morning. So what questions and comments do you have? Let's say, hey, Karen. Oh, Karen, did you have your meeting yet? Oh, she did. Okay, let's get the scoop. She said, we had the boys' IEP meeting this morning. It went well. So I guess we'll see how the implementation goes. How wonderful is that? I've been thinking about you, Karen. Oh, good. I'm glad it went so well. And Kim is here from Iowa, one of our trailblazers. She said, I get to listen, and the whole time today, first time in a long time. I know usually we get, Kim is like working when we're here live. So I'm glad that you are here today live. And Karen, do you have a question? She said the principal asked if I could come in and talk with the paras during a training day to share a different perspective. Now, I think that's like a celebration, right? Because look at not only the seeds of change that you've been planting, and Karen is one of our trailblazers too. But yeah, that's wonderful. I'm just so excited for you because that will make a huge difference. And I know that you can really connect with them and they'll be so interested in hearing your perspective as a parent and things, you can give them tips of what works for you. The other thing I always encourage families to do when they're talking with teachers and other staff is to give them permission to fail. Because as parents, we failed and we'll keep making more mistakes, right? And that's okay, because we also know that we're going to change and we're going to do better once we know better. And so I think it really helps kind of dispel the fears and the defensiveness of staff when parents are having a conversation with them, to right up front, say, I'm here to tell you, I don't have all the answers. I keep finding out more things every day, but I can share with you some mistakes I've made, what I've learned from it. And I can also say it's okay, because we'll make mistakes at school during the year. As long as we keep in touch, as long as we keep learning from that, we will have a wonderful year together. So that's my little soapbox of what to say to teachers. And Angie's here from Nebraska. Hey, Angie. She said we had parent-teacher conferences yesterday, and all the general ed teachers were so surprised that inclusion was going so well. He's in 8th grade. It finally took this long to get him included for everything except math. And I love it. I think we need to say this is our celebration day. um, so tell us in the comments, Angie, how does that make you feel? And let's give Karen, and Angie some love, right? Because it feels so good when we have good things to celebrate. And I really encourage you to savor these moments. Because there will come times where you feel kind of, discouraged again. And so go back on these moments. And, if you're a person that keeps a journal, write it down, so you can go back and reread that. Find a way to capture those memories. Like, maybe just take a photo of the invitation for the parent-teacher conference, something like that, that will be a memory trigger. And it was like, that felt so nice when I was at that conference. Or for you, Karen, again, I don't know if you are a journal writer, or if there's another way that you can capture those memories and hold them, because when there comes a time during the year when things aren't going so well, you can look back and say, I remember that day when the principal asked me to do some in-service for staff and give them my perspective. I mean, that's like huge, 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 huge. Yay. I love it. I love it. I love it. We got to do more celebrating. All right. Angie says, thank you for the love. It feels great. Oh, good. Well, you deserve it. You deserve it. So while you're thinking of other questions to type in here, I've got the wheel of questions. So these are some questions that I've gotten recently from families. And so while you're waiting to think of what your question is, let's see if our wheel of questions will work here. Ooh, can you hear it? So, so much applause for accommodations and modifications. So let's come back to StreamYard here. So yes, accommodations and modifications. So let me pull up the question that the parent had sent me. And she said, I keep hearing, let me just go solo. I keep hearing teachers talking about accommodations and modifications. I don't know what they're talking about. Are they the same thing? And that's a pretty common, I think both accommodations and modifications. Sometimes they're used interchangeably, those words, but they really do mean different things. So the easiest way that I can remember the difference between accommodations and modifications is accommodations change the how. So if you can, think of the word how when you hear accommodations. And what we're talking about is how the lesson is presented can be changed for your child and most likely for other kids, right? So instead of just doing a lecture, perhaps the teacher also includes some clips from a video. Perhaps they do some hands-on, activities or experiments. So because of your child's unique needs, they might need some accommodations in how the material is presented or the concepts presented. Now, your child also might need accommodations for how they're going to show the teacher what they learned. And so this can be that, typical book report that we remember probably from our elementary school days. I mean, kids are doing like YouTube videos now as a book report, a podcast. So if they're into technology, if your child is more expressive through art, they could do a diorama that, out of the old shoebox. Those things are still cool. About the book, they can, for some kids that love writing a book report is exactly what they want. So accommodations change how the material is presented, how your child is showing what they've learned. Modifications, on the other hand, change the what. So what is the word that you want to keep in mind when you hear modifications? It changes what your child is learning. So your child, when they are using modified work, will not be learning maybe the depth and the detail of the skills or the concepts that the other kids in the class are learning, but they're still involved, participating, accessing the general ed curriculum. So, and I did I have this book this is a really good book. And in the show notes that I'll be sending out, whenever I hold something up, do you see how my complexion changes? Inclusion in Action from Nicole Ericks. And I've had her on my show a couple times, but this is a great book, and has like really practical modifications that you can suggest to teachers because, I realize that you're not a teacher and, technically you shouldn't have to be learning all this. However, as Karen is finding out, and I'm sure as Angie knows, and Kim has done this, that you as a parent are in the educator's position sometime by helping teachers understand. So when you talk about my child can participate and can be included in general ed, these are some accommodations of how the material is going to be changed, or my child needs some modified, activities. And if they say, well, we don't really know how to do that, and well, they probably won't say it that way. They'll probably say, your child would have so much more individualized help if they're pulled out and go to the special ed room. However, we, being savvy change makers, we have resources like this, and I'm sure you can get this book from your public library. And you go through here and find some examples of modifications that would work for your child, and you share those with the staff. Because you already have this innate sense of what works and what doesn't work with your child, and that kind of information needs to be shared. Let's see. Karen says, so awesome. How can the school help a student become an independent gradually? Goals can become more independent. And this is a great question, because so many times when we're writing IEPs and we look at service time, some students need extra adult support for, medical reasons, for bathroom needs, for safety. And so there's sometimes a paraeducator assigned to the classroom. She's helping everybody in the class, but she or he also is going to be available for your child. So as parents, as teachers, we worry sometimes about kids getting too dependent on adults. And that is a good thing to be concerned about. Because if other supports in the classroom aren't also seen as viable options, then that extra adult is always going to be the go-to. So instead, we also want to talk at IEP meetings about using the natural peer supports in the classroom as cues for your child. And I'm not talking about, we assign a buddy and he has to be your child's tutor and what are his parents going to say? No, I'm talking about simple, authentic kinds of support from peers. Like, when the teacher says, okay, in 5 minutes we have recess. And the other kids are kind of looking at the clock. They're kind of going, oh, okay, pretty soon we get recess. And then the teacher says, okay, 1 more minute, start cleaning up. We're going to get ready to line up for recess. The kids are starting to put their markers and pencils away, and your child can look around and it's like, oh, yeah, the teacher said recess. I better put my stuff away. So those natural cues can be really helpful. The other thing is you really want to, if there is an extra adult in the classroom, you want to look at critical times when that person has to be with your child versus Velcroed. The other thing, and I can put this in the show notes that I'll send out tomorrow. So let me write myself a note. Julie Costin has this, I don't know if she calls it ladder of supports, but what I love about it is at the bottom rung of the ladder is like your child's just, listening to the teacher, doing any, watching for any other natural kind of cues. There's no additional support that they need. So sometimes your child might need some kind of support, and you want to use the least amount of support first. So that first rung might be just maybe a visual prompt or a visual cue. So your child, didn't respond to, let's clean up for recess. So maybe a visual prompt or a cue is his next door neighbor, like giving him the elbow that says, come on, guy, we got to go. Whatever that first prompt is that you do, then what I like is Julie explains how you go back to no prompting, no help, right? And believing that your child can do the next step. So whenever we have to go up that ladder we tried a visual prompt, it didn't work. Now maybe we're going to do a verbal reminder. That didn't work. What do we have to do next? But we never stay up at that level. We always, after the child is successful, we always drop our support down to that basic level. So let me know if you like that idea. Give us a thumbs up or a heart. I don't have my heart here. Give us a heart. And that kind of, philosophy, that strategy has to be taught to people, right? I mean, not many people just have that innate sense. And so that could be something that you suggest, to the special ed teacher, to the general ed teacher, to both of them, can we have a conversation with the support staff so they understand we want our give our kids a chance to make mistakes, because that's how we learn, right? And if we are always zooming up that ladder of support and we're giving high level of support all the time, we aren't giving your child time to make mistakes, time to fail, time to try it again. And those kinds of things are really important for your kids too. The other thing I'll say about extra support, and it can be a fine line, but you do want to think ahead of time how you're going to be fading that. And that ladder of support that I'll put in the email, and I'll bring up again, if you don't get our weekly emails, you can go there. I'll put that in the email that goes out tomorrow, because I think that just that visual graphic would be really awesome to share with staff, or even like private therapists that work with your child, right? So let's go back to our comments. Yes. Karen says we're all teachers. Yep. And our kids are teachers, right? And Kim says, Julie just provided a new 20 ways to provide invisible or silent support in her masterclass series held yesterday. Oh, and Kim is great about getting on all those classes. I sign up and sometimes it's like, I have an IEP meeting. And she says it could also be on her site, inclusiveschooling.com. Cool. Yes, you want to check out Julie's website for sure. Karen says, sounds great. What about completing work independently without support like a scribe? Should the scribe be removed with a gradual approach? Yeah, and it depends also on your child's age. One of the things, especially as kids, again, it just depends on like what their skills are, but to look at using assistive technology. If your child has speech that is easily understood, then using different apps, or accessible settings on computers or Chromebooks, your child can start doing speech to text. So if your child now is speaking to a scribe and the scribe is writing it down, one of the ways that you could help your child be more independent is to start using technology. And again, it depends on the age of your child and all kinds of other things, but that is a great way to, do that gradual release of responsibility. And now your child is going to speak into their Chromebook, their iPad, their computer, and the computer is going to type out what your child says. Depending on the app that you're using, sometimes, I think most times, then your child will have to go back and, edit, like as far as putting periods, telling the computer where to put the period or the question mark. But yeah, that would be one way. Another way to just look at what are the small steps, the incremental steps that we could take to fade, having a scribe. One thing is, maybe first the scribe is an adult, and then maybe the scribe is a friend sitting next to him. And then maybe it's your child learning to use tools like speech to text. And again, sometimes having small groups of kids, either with their Chromebooks in the classroom or in the, computer lab or something, having other kids there that are learning to use that tool, that can be a great way for your child to be more engaged and motivated to use that technology. So the rest of you put in your answers to this question about the gradual release of a scribe. What are your ideas? Because the beauty of this community is all of you have such good ideas. So I bring us together, but I don't have all the answers. So what do the rest of you think? Let's give her some ideas. I'm going to take a sip of water here. So Kim was talking about prompting, and she said, I know I'm guilty of not giving my son enough time to process the prompt. Yeah, and that wait time is really important, right? She says, I will provide a second prompt or present it in another way. And that just starts and interrupts his thinking. So here he was trying to process the first prompt, and now we're already giving him the second one. So yeah, that can cause like what that disconnect that can be frustrating for kids. The other thing that I see with verbal prompts is, or verbal directions, right? A teacher's going to be giving verbal directions, is that the child almost learns not to listen to the teacher because he's got that little person sitting next to him, that paraeducator, that is like right there to say, okay, Johnny, we got to get our science book out. So we're almost, that's where that dependency is, and the use of a para isn't a good idea, because your child just waits. It's like the parent's going to help me. I don't really have to do anything right now. So yeah, all of that is really helpful, right? Karen says, I think the reason someone has a scribe would change how you fade it out. I would think if it's an issue of not being able to write well for long periods of time, a child could start or finish whatever's being written, but not all. Yeah, but those alternative technologies may eliminate the need as well. And I think that's an excellent point, Karen, right? I mean, that's why you have to know the child. That's why what we have to do is individualized. That's why we have the letter I in IEPs, right? And we forget that sometimes. So, yeah. And, if your child has a scribe, like I think about my son, Dylan. So, I sometimes say he has a Down syndrome accent. That's how he talks, and technology doesn't always understand what Dylan is saying, which that can be a teaching tool in itself, that he has to be very clear when he's asking Siri a question, or Alexa, or whoever. So if your child has a scribe, and the scribe can, is used to hearing your child's language and is knowing what they're saying, and the scribe can write it down. And then you go, okay, good. We're ready now to go to speech to text technology. And it's like, sometimes there needs to be this training time to teach the program your child's articulation and how they say words. So, sometimes going from a scribe to speech to text isn't going to work, because your child's speech still isn't understood by the technology. And I know Google's been working on this, where they've had different people, especially with Down syndrome, like record things, and then, they're teaching Google how to listen to that Down syndrome accent. But yeah, if it's because of a fine motor thing and your child isn't, able to write, the scribe can do that part. And then, you have to look at what's another way, and that's where you get other people involved, like your occupational therapists at school, and say, come do push-in services and watch how this is happening. What's another way that we can get my child to develop these written language skills without being dependent on a scribe? So yeah, good thoughts. Who else has a thought about that? Or another question. Karen says, my husband was saying today he'd like to get our son an old-timey typewriter to see if he'd be interested in using it to demonstrate his knowledge. I'm not sure it will work, but everything is worth trying for sure. And I have my high school typewriter in my garage. And I'm not sure why I'm keeping it, other than I'm one of those persons that doesn't throw things away. But yeah, I think you look at, that keyboard, and for some kids, that the old-timey typewriter gives, like, you have to press harder, so it gives more input. So for some kids, that's, really what they like. And Karen, I don't know if you have explored much about facilitated communication. And I can for sure put some resources for that in our email that will come out tomorrow. But yeah, and there are a variety of ways that kids can do that. So I think for sure, see if you go to your local, thrift store, and if they've got some typewriters for sale. Some kids use like an alphabet card. Well, they'll point to the letters. I'm sure about like alternative communication devices, but facilitated communication is like a whole, you know, process and strategy by itself. Um, and a lot of people with autism, a lot of autistic people use facilitated communication. So let me know if you'd like some resources about that. Um, she says, I'm looking into rapid prompting method too. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I think all of us will identify there is so much trial and error that we need to do as parents and that teachers need to do. And that's why that close communication between staff and families is so important, because if you try some of these at home and they work, it's like, yeah, let's get a typewriter in that classroom right away. Or if you try something like, the rapid prompting, and it's like, no, that didn't work. Make sure you communicate that with the teachers. You both shouldn't have to be doing so much, reinventing the wheel. So as much, and I think that'll be so cool, Karen, when you do that in service for the staff, because you'll be able to share all those things that you know about your son that works. And also share the things you've tried that don't work, right? Because that can be equally as important. Okay, I'm waiting for a question. I'm going to share our wheel of questions, and let's see if I can make this spin again. Spin. And it landed on tools for recording. So, how many of you record your IEP meetings? Raise your hand. How many of you use, on a pretty regular basis, some tool, some device to record your meetings? As an advocate, by the time people hire me to help them, they're pretty much on that path of, we better make sure that we really understand what's being said in the conversations. And I recommend that parents record meetings, even if they're not contentious, because it's hard to remember all that stuff that happened. And you want to be able to go back and go, we talked about lining up for recess. What was that one good idea we had? And you can go back to your recording and re-listen to it. So the tool that I use, and that if you've been on our shows before, you probably know my favorite tool, and I should type it here in the banner, is otter.ai. And there's a free version, and there's a paid version that's, I think, like around $12.95 $5 a month or something. But what I love about Otter.ai is not only do you get the audio transcript, the audio file, but you also get a written transcript. So it's really kind of fun to watch. You can just try it out for yourself. And what you do is just start talking. Well, first hit the record button, start talking, and you can just watch Otter typing in the background everything that you say. So it makes a great tool because the other advantages of using something like Otter is you can type in a keyword like recess, and Otter will find all the times in that IEP meeting that recess was talked about and highlight them. And you can easily go through that written transcript and say, oh yeah, this is where we had talked about what would help. So anyway, Otter is great. I think for the free version, it only records meetings, conversations up to like 40 minutes. And most of your IEP meetings are probably going to be longer. So then you just have to be cognizant if you're doing the free version. After 40 minutes, you have to like hit the record button again and start a new recording. But you get, I think it's like 600 free minutes a month. And so it makes it really nice. Being an advocate, going to lots of IEP meetings, I have the paid version. So I get, 1,600 minutes a month or something. But yeah, Otter.ai would be the one that I recommend. So, a valid concern. And I think that's pretty natural. Like, oh my. And it, like I said, that's why if you can start using it before you have meetings where there's going to be a lot of disagreement, it's a little bit easier for people to say, well, yeah, they just want to be able to go back and listen to this. But it really is more of a memory aid than any kind of a threat. And it depends, like if you're doing virtual meetings and they're using Zoom or Google Meets or whatever, you can ask that the school record the meeting, and then you'll have the video and you'll have the audio. And then if you want to go back and replay that, you can use Otter to make a written transcript. But yeah, I think, and it depends. You have to be aware of what the rules are in your state. Some states are considered one-party state, where only one party has to give permission, consent for the recording. So you're the parent, you give consent for the recording. You technically wouldn't have to tell people you're recording. I don't think that's being transparent like we want to be. So I always encourage parents to let the school know at least 24 hours ahead of time that you want to be recording, and that you also, expect that the school will want to make a recording so they can get their iPhone ready or whatever tool they're going to use. So tell them ahead of time. There are some states where there are two-party states, and both the parent and the school would have to agree before a recording can occur. So when I've had virtual IEP meetings for people in the state of Washington, Washington is a two-party state, and they rarely say, yes, we'll let the parent record, or yes, we want to record. So knowing what your state rules are really important. But yeah, I think, the other thing is, as far as your husband feeling like, we're already putting people on the defensive if we're going to record it. I think you just be honest with them and just say, it just really helps me to go back and re-listen to this. I can't digest everything while we're sitting here in the meeting. And to me, that's the main purpose of why you want to be recording. And Kim says, yes, that I was nervous at first, but now I just say it is a given because there's so much info that's given. There's no way I could remember everything. Yeah. And I think, and the other thing I think parents have said to me is, oh, they won't really be honest and be their truth self if we're recording. And actually, I think as the meeting goes on, most people forget that it's even being recorded. So I think you do get honest discussion and honest conversation, even when the meeting's being recorded. And that's what you want to create most, right? Is some honest conversation. And Kim says, yeah, and the team's used to it. Karen says, sounds like Otter is a lifesaver. Yeah, and you have to know that it's through artificial intelligence. So they're not going to get every word right. I rarely go back and edit transcripts because I can listen to it and go, oh, yeah, that's what they said. But if you want a more perfect transcript, you can spend time editing it also. You can give it words. So, like for me, the acronym IDEA, I'll have that in there. So when I say idea, then Otter knows I'm probably talking about IDEA. So they'll capitalize it. So different words like that you can add to the dictionary so Otter knows what you're saying. The other thing, of course, that helps is if there's only one person speaking at a time. But you can put in, labels for people like, the teacher, the special ed teacher, the science teacher, the principal. And so Otter starts to be able to hear that voice. And as the teacher or the principal talks later in the conversation, Otter will usually put teacher, principal. So it's pretty amazing. And I'm almost positive I have a video about how to do it. I know Karen in our Trailblazer group, I do, so I can show you that. And I think I also have it on my YouTube channel. So I'll put that in the email that goes out tomorrow. And Karen says nobody has that kind of time. Michelle, hey Michelle, she says cool. And if you don't know Michelle, she's the administrator on the 100% inclusion. And does it have something else, Michelle? Type it in. She's got a wonderful Facebook group over there if you're interested in more inclusive education kinds of things. So how are we doing? Do you have any more questions? I'll do another wheel question here. Well, I'm waiting for you to see if you have a question. So let's spin it. Evaluation meeting. Yay, we love evaluation meetings, right? And let me see. I paper for the question that came in about that was the school said they would do some testing for special education. The teacher said she would meet with the school psychologist and figure out what tests to do. Do I have any say? And this is a great question because I think sometimes parents don't realize that they are also members of the evaluation team. And usually the people that are members of the evaluation team also then become members of the IEP team. And yes, you do have a say in what's going to be decided or what the school is going to be asking you to give consent for. And in the federal regulations, and I always, usually when I do these live shows, I try to give you the federal regulations because that applies to everyone. But guess what? There are some states that give you more rights, and so you always need to know your state regs too. But from a federal level, evaluation meetings are not required, but they're permissible. So, what typically happens, and speaking from experience as being a special ed teacher and a general ed teacher for 30 years, what generally happens is when there's a request for an initial evaluation, is the special ed teacher will look through the child's cum, their records at school, talk to the parents some, and say, I don't know, it seems like we've got some communication concerns, so I better check with the speech language pathologist for her to do some testing. And then it's like, well, we also have, trying to figure out what this child's behavior is communicating. So maybe we want to send home a checklist for that, whatever. Usually the special ed teacher is kind of directing the players and contacting them and say, we need you to do some testing. This is an initial evaluation for this child. And then the special ed teacher will get their feedback. She'll check off, we're going to do speech, we're going to do behavior, we're going to do whatever. And they'll send the paper home, say, sign it, date it, send it back, we'll get it started. That is not the preferred method that I have for evaluation meetings, is because I want you to start having those conversations with the staff before things are sent home for you to sign. So the purpose of having that evaluation team is that they can sit down together, and you're a member, and look at what information do we already have. We already have some progress monitoring information. Well, no, this is an initial IEP. So it might be, well, we have some, report cards. We have some, narrative feedback from teachers. We have a private OT report, whatever. The team, the evaluation team, looks at the information that the school already has, looks at the information the parent has already shared, and say, what is missing here? What would help us support this student? What are the areas of suspected disability? And we need to make sure we address those areas. And then as a team, which you're a member of, the evaluation team then comes up with, these are the tests that we want to do. As a parent, you can consent for some, you don't have to consent for all. And I do have videos about evaluations, and I'll write myself a note and put that in the email for tomorrow. So that's my little bit about evaluation meetings. So let's see. Michelle wrote in her, oh, good. I can never remember the whole thing. So you can look on Facebook for 100% inclusion for individuals with special educational needs. Or you can just start typing 100% inclusion, and Facebook usually comes up with that. Excuse me. So, do you have any other questions, any other celebrations that we want to talk about today? We will be back next Thursday at noon Mountain Time. And if you're watching on the replay, know that you can still type your questions in, because I keep coming back to this post, and I'll look for new questions and comment and respond. So let me give you a minute while I take a sip and see if you have anything else on your mind. I'm so glad that we have this community on Facebook where we can meet once a week. However, on Monday, we kind of saw that Facebook isn't always reliable. So the other thing I'll put in the newsletter is my YouTube channel, because that will be my plan B. If Facebook goes down on a Thursday at noon Mountain Time and you're wondering like, where's Charmaine? You can go over to my YouTube channel and we can do our show over there. Yes. Happy Down Syndrome Month. I know. And Michelle has a son who has Down syndrome and is a freshman in college this year in Florida. So for those of you with older kiddos, Michelle is a great contact for you. And she can talk about what that transition to going to college is like. And her history of being an advocate for inclusion for her son, throughout his schooling. And it just brings back good memories to me, because when Dylan was a senior in college, 2007, for his after senior year, what he wanted to do was go to college. And that was his transition plan, was that he would, at that time in 2007, all he could do was audit classes at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. But those 4 years that he took college classes in things like, ancient civilization, and he took gender and bias, racism bias class. He took art. He took lots of different kinds of classes. But so know that there are so many opportunities and possibilities for your kiddos, and what you are doing now to advocate for them to have an inclusive education makes a tremendous impact on the inclusive life that they will have after high school. So know that everything that you're doing these days when your kids are younger is helping them. I mean, look at Angie and her son in 8th grade, and like, he's pretty much 100% included. So yes, there are possibilities, there are opportunities, and we are part of the change makers that are going to make that happen. And so you give me energy, and just kind of like that excitement, like, yes, we are going to make change. We believe, right? Oh, Karen, you're so nice. She said, I haven't told you today, so you should know. I really appreciate you. Well, I am so glad. And I wish I was actually in Colorado and could come see you, Karen. And Karen lives in this wonderful environment where they have goats and animals, and it just, I don't know, seems like it would be a peaceful place. And Michelle says, thank you, true. New programs coming every year. Raymond is taking history of rock and roll. Yeah. And Dylan took that also when he in Colorado. And we even went to the costume store and like rented this Elvis Presley outfit, like the white jumpsuit, and we got a wig because Dylan doesn't have any hair. And he presented his PowerPoint about Elvis Presley and was dressed as Elvis Presley. So there are a lot of ways that our kids can still access school after high school. And one of those ways is to go to college. So that's pretty cool. And Kim says, yeah, how it's so awesome. And it is. And so, I look at, if Dylan can, he went to college 2007 to 2011, it's like years later, about a decade later, we can start expanding the post-secondary choices for our kids. And in Idaho, now that I live in Idaho, this has been one of the things that Dylan and I have been working here, is to expand those opportunities for kiddos. And so we have 4 colleges now in Idaho that offer post-secondary programs for kids with developmental or intellectual disabilities. Think College, and I'll put that link in the newsletter. Think College is like the jackpot of information about post-secondary ed. So if you're thinking of that, Angie, if your son wants to think about college, that might be a resource to tap into. So thanks for being here, and thank you for being one of those change makers. Because, like I said, we've got to stop playing small and start gathering some more allies. So, find people in your district, find people in your local communities to start working on some really systemic change, because that's what's going to drive our education system to make change. And that is going to benefit every single child that walks through that door. Right? So let's see. Yes, and they've also got a Facebook group you can go to, Think College. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day. You too. Hey, Sue. Thank you. And yes, Michelle says there's another Facebook group, Families Think College. So all of those are really good resources. So as you are getting report cards, as you are having parent-teacher conferences, when you're getting your first progress reports, know that your child is competent, your child can be successful, and that we're here each week to support each other, to celebrate with each other. So I am Charmaine Tanner. Thank you for spending some time with us, and we shall see you next Thursday.